Hello my lovelies, it's Kooky here, but I'm not at a Kooky corner, oh no. I'm away in Cornwall for a while, so I'm just enjoying the sunshine, the hot tub, having lots of lovely food and just chilling out basically. But obviously I bring things to do, always bring things to do with me. At the moment, I am having a go at some cross stitch. Now, the cross stitch I'm doing at the moment is it's a tarot card, and the Witchy Stitcher, whose link I will leave in the description below. I belong to their Patreon because I specifically joined especially for the tarot cards, because they're releasing a series of tarot cards, free patterns, specifically to Patreons. They will be in the shop, I do believe, later on for them. But at the minute, I'm really enjoying the tarot cards. So they're kind of funky, and this one's got two aliens on it that stand together, but I've just literally done the one. And I thought you guys might like a quick 101 beginner cross stitch video, because I know that some people find it a little bit confusing as to where to start, and so I thought I would go through and give you a little bit of a 101. So let's go through the things that you're going to need to start a cross stitch. So first things first, you're going to need something to stitch onto. I recommend, it's an even weave fabric and it's called Aida, A-I-D-A, and there are different count threads for Aida. You can get it in a 14, a 16, an 18, a 22. I do believe there are other variations, but the 14 count, that's what you need to be looking for a 14 count Aida to start with. It's a good starting fabric. Also in white, because you want to be able to see where your stitches are going. They do this in many different colours, including black, which is what I'm working on at the moment. Actually, I'm not working on Aida at the moment. I am actually working on this, which is, you probably won't be able to see. Let me grab a piece out. Raffle. This is plastic canvas. Because I wanted my tarot cards to be on plastic canvas for some reason. I have got some black Aida thread fabric, but I wanted to work on this. This is not easy to work with. Black fabric in general is hard because you have to try and find the holes. With the plastic, I'm finding it easy because the holes are already in there for me. If we look at this, for example, which is a black Aida, you can vaguely see the holes through. If I hold something white behind it, you might be able to make them out. Probably not. So it's not as easy to stitch on black fabric at all. So that's why I'm suggesting white. So white Aida 14 count. You will need a pair of scissors to cut your Aida with, and a small pair of embroidery scissors to cut your floss with. Some people work in hoops. As I'm working on plastic at the moment, I can't put my plastic in a hoop, but if you find it easier to keep your fabric taut, then by all means use a hoop. Not necessarily this size, this is a small one because I have this in my kit. But you can get hoops in many different sizes, and if you like to hoop up your work, then that is something that you could think about. Some people don't bother, some people just stitch into the fabric and just hold the fabric. However you like to work. Try it out, see if you like it. If you don't get on with it, you can always swap back again. Needle. I have got a specific cross stitch needle. Now, you can get tapestry needles. This one is John James size 24, the one that I'm using at the moment. And it's got quite a blunt end, but a very big eye. And that's what you need. to do cross stitch. You don't want it to have a sharp end because it will sometimes go in between stitches when you don't want it to, and instead of just going in the holes quite normally. So that's where you're going to be heading for, the holes there. The most important thing is the thread, and I use floss. I use both DMC and Anchor, but for the pattern that I'm using at the moment, it's all in DMC. Now, if you only have Anchor or DMC and the pattern calls for Anchor or DMC and you haven't got it, there are conversion charts that you can get online to convert the colours. So you'll get a similar colour, maybe not exactly the same, but you get a similar colour throughout both of those ranges. There are also Madeira threads, which are good as well. So it really is up to you what you have and how you want to work. So beginning stitching, I've cut myself off a length of floss. It's not too long. If you cut off too long a length of floss, you will find it starts to knot. That's something that you don't want. So if you separate out the end of the floss, you will see that it is made up of 6 strands generally, and the pattern will tell you usually how many strands you need to use for your piece. So on my bit here, it tells me that I'm using 2 strands for all of my pattern, and it will sometimes give you 1 strand for outlines or 2 strands for outlines. The pattern will tell you what you need to do. So if I'm using 2 strands, I don't cut 2 lengths of this. I cut 1 length of this, and then we have to separate out the strands, and we do those one by one. If you try and do more, it might tangle. So I'm just pulling out 2 strands. Those 2 strands will then go together. I'll even it up a bit, and then I will thread my needle. She said, hopefully. Never plays correctly online. You can get needle threaders. A little bit of perseverance. And this is where my microphone died. Hello, this is voice over me. So I've threaded my needle, and I'm now going to put a knot in the end. Quite controversial, but some people do, some people don't. You can either put a knot in the end of it, or you could leave a little tail and then sew over it. It is totally up to you, whatever finish you want for the back of yours, but I don't care, so I put a knot in just to make it easier. I'm waffling my hands around a little bit here, not sure what I'm talking about because my microphone died, but hey, we'll continue. So I've got my piece of Aida, I've got my thread, and what I need to do is to find the centre. You'll find that patterns will always ask you to start from the centre because you don't want to start stitching and then find that you don't have enough at the top or the bottom to complete your design. So start from the centre of the pattern in the centre of the fabric that you've measured. You can't do what I'm going to show you with plastic canvas, but with Aida or any other fabric, make sure you've got enough to complete the design on your piece of fabric. So for example here, the size of my finished design is 4.9 inches by 7.93 inches. And I need to make sure I've got a piece of fabric that can take that amount, so measure it out accordingly and cut it out with your big scissors. So what we need to do now is to find the centre. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold over one way. You do this with any size. Fold it one way. Make sure you've got a little bit of a creasage going on there so you can see the line. Then fold the other way and pinch that corner bit because that's going to be your centre. And you'll be able to see it quite clearly. When you open it out again, you'll be able to find the centre very easily. So then you locate the centre stitch on your pattern and start from there. Believe me, it is the easiest way. I know you're tempted to start from the top of the pattern and work down, but working from the middle is the way forward, I promise. Okay, so if you're working on plastic canvas like I am, you can't fold. So what you have to do is to get the measurement of your piece, and it's easier that way. So on the plastic canvas, I'm just grabbing some out now to show you, you'd measure across your piece of canvas both ways and then just find the centre and mark it. What I do is I use a white marker on this black canvas, so a Posca marker or an acrylic marker, just to mark the centre. Okay, so when we've found our centre, we can then start stitching. So from the back of your Aida, you go up through one of the holes closest to the centre. You might not be able to get one right on the centre, but closest to the centre. And I am going in a left to right diagonal. That is my first part of my cross stitch. And then, in order to complete it, actually I'm going to show you again, just because. So finding the corner again of the hole that's closest to the centre, I'm going from the top left and I'm going to go diagonally to the bottom right. And that is half of my cross stitch, or a half cross stitch, as I'll show you later on. To complete it, I go up into the top corner of that same square where the hole is, and I'm going to go from top right to bottom left. The holes are very clearly visible on your Aida, which is why this is a good fabric to start with. And there I've got a full cross stitch, and that is your first stitch on your fabric. The next thing we're going to do is, if you've got a set of stitches in the same colour, then you can just do a whole row of them going one way and then coming back the other way, which is what I'm going to show you now. So I'm starting off in that left top, coming down to the right bottom, and then I'm just going to complete however many stitches I need to do, doing the same thing. So I'm from left top to right bottom. So for example, if I'm going to do 6 stitches, then I'm going to do six left top to right bottom. Just making sure that I'm in the holes and not going through the threads in the fabric. The holes are there for your needle to go through, and that's why the needle that you use should be blunt, so that it's not going to accidentally catch on those other threads. They will come into play later on, but for now, for starting to make your first cross stitches, you just need to work in these holes. And then we'll have 6 of these, all in a line. So there we've got 6 half cross stitches. So to complete them, we're going to come back the other way, and we're going to go from top right to bottom left, all the way along that row to complete it. You can just simply do crosses, but I just find it easier sometimes. If you've got a whole row of, say, 20 in the same colour, it's just so much easier to do all the crosses, all the diagonals one way, and then the diagonals the other way coming back. It just makes life that little bit easier, and it's quite relaxing as well. Okay, coming up to the end of this bit now, and that's our 6 cross stitches completed. You can see them quite clearly now, just 6 simple cross stitches. And it's just a case of if you've got stitches close by, you could actually travel your thread along the back. As long as your thread's not too bright and shows through the fabric, then you can travel a certain distance, but I wouldn't suggest travelling the whole length of your piece to get one stitch in another place. Okay, so we're going to have a look now at creating a stitch that's just a half stitch or maybe even a quarter stitch. So let's have a look at that now. First of all, I'm just showing you how I've used my diagonals just to fill in the bits on my alien piece that I'm doing here. Obviously worked one way in diagonals and then the other way. Okay, back to the Aida again. And I'm going to show you other stitches that you might need. Cross stitch is generally all you will need to start off with, and I suggest that you pick a pattern that is mainly or all whole stitches just to start off with so that you get the idea of it. But you can work into the other threads, and I'm going to show you how we do this now. I'm not quite sure what I'm pointing out here. This is the problem of a microphone that just gave up the ghost. Do forgive. I'm talking about something going on in the centre here. It's probably a load of waffle, so you missed out on that. I think I'm just talking about travelling the threads along. You can travel a certain amount of length, but you don't want to be doing too much, especially on a white fabric. And because my thread is red, it would show through. So you'd have to be very careful about taking threads out of sequence. If you're going to cover all the rest of the area up, then that's fine. Okay, so to finish off that thread, I'm going to go back, turn my fabric over, go back through the backs of the thread, say 3 or 4 of them, and then I'm going to turn it round and go back through those. That will hold it in place. You can knot it off, but I like to limit the amount of knots I've got going on in the back of my fabric, just so that if I mount it, it's not going to be too bulky. So now I'm talking about travelling threads across a piece. Again, you have to make your own judgment. If it's only a couple of stitches away and the rest of it's going to be covered up, then do it, I say. Don't travel your thread too far because it's just going to pull on the back of your fabric. But if it's going to be a couple of stitches away, then I say go for it. Just makes life easy. Okay, so let's have a look at those other stitches. So the pattern will tell you exactly which way the stitch needs to go. So half stitch is either going to go from top left to bottom right or top right to bottom left. Those are 2 ways it can go, but your pattern will direct you by putting a line in the direction you need to go in. So yeah, first thing you need to do is a half cross stitch. Turn the hole to go in. There we go. And we're going to go down. Oh, actually, we're going to go up for this one. So that's 1/2 cross stitch. And the pattern could ask you to go the other way. So that could be another direction of your half cross stitch. That's the 2 ways that it could ask you to go. So if you were going to do a quarter cross stitch, then what you need to do is to look in between. So you're going to go up through one of the holes of your fabric. So there we go, that's one there. And then you're going to find the centre of that particular square that you're working in. So you're going to actually go through the threads in the middle in order to create a quarter cross stitch. So it's not going all the way up to the top of that other diagonal, it's just going halfway. So then we're going to go halfway again. And then we're going to complete a diagonal in the other direction. So going from that top corner and going across to the bottom right corner. And there we have a 3/4 cross stitch. That's covering 3/4 of your square. And you can go all the way through your pattern and pick out the areas, and it will tell you exactly which direction it wants you to go, so do not worry about that. The other stitch that you may use for outlining things is a back stitch. And a back stitch is simply coming up in one of the squares and then moving along that row of squares. You're not going diagonal, you're just going to go in front with one and then take your thread back to the last hole and go through that. And that's a back stitch. They will ask you to do this either in 2 threads or 1 thread. The pattern again will tell you what you need to do. So just keep in mind your pattern and look at all the instructions before you start. And that's a back stitch. The only other stitch I can think of that they may ask you to do is a French knot. Sometimes they ask you to do French knots for eyes or for various bits of detail, in which case you'd come up and then you would wrap your thread around the needle twice, go back down into the same hole and then holding onto your thread until the very last and then pull it and you've got a French knot. And those are all the things that they will probably ask you to do within a pattern. I hope you've enjoyed this very quick run through of cross stitch. It's something that I really enjoy. I did this years and years ago and I used to buy all the magazines and I did all the cross stitch patterns and loads of things I did way back in the 80s and 90s, and I've just started to get back into it again, especially from the Witchy Stitcher and all the patterns for the tarot cards that I'm so looking forward to creating. I could easily have done these on a black Aida fabric as well, but I chose to do them on the plastic canvas because I want them actually to be something that I can hold as a tarot card. And I saw somebody else had done that as well, so I thought it worked really well. The only way it wouldn't have worked well is if it wasn't just whole cross stitches, because with a plastic canvas you can't do the half cross stitches or the 3/4 cross stitches because literally you only have the holes that are in the plastic to work with. I think it would be extremely difficult to do half cross stitches, so the tarot cards I'm working on now are all full cross stitches, so that works really well for me, and back stitch can work on there as well, equally as well. Anyway, that's enough from me for now. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to show me your thumbs and like and subscribe. Thank you very much.